Good day, YouTube, and welcome back to the Sneaky V YouTube channel. My name is Darius, and I finally got my block back from the machine shop. Now, if you've been watching for a while, you'll know that I've been working on this thing for about 8 to 10 months. I'm not sure of the time period, but because this thing was off to the machine shop for 4 months, everything basically came to a stop. I did use that time though to collect a few more parts and get my little workspace here cleaned up, so it's a little bit roomier in here. So now that I got this block back from the machine shop, the next thing that I need to do is get my other parts ready to go into the block. I couldn't measure these things without the block being here, so the first thing that I need to do is work on my piston rings. These piston rings have to be at a certain gap size. As you can see, they have a gap in there, and these piston rings need to be at a certain gap size to work properly with the block. If they're not, what will happen is that these two ends will squeeze together, and then it'll start expanding outward, and it can basically rip the top off of your piston, and you really don't want that because that gets really expensive. Anyways, in order to measure these, you take one and you put it down inside of the cylinder bore here, and I've already taken a piston and done the rings on one of them. So I'm going to use that with the ring on the second ring land there, and use it to push that cylinder ring down into the cylinder bore evenly, so that it's even all the way around and it's not tilted in the cylinder bore. And then, based on the calculations that came with my piston rings, you take the bore size, which is 4.125, and multiply it by 0.007 according to this, and you get 0.39. So I have my filler gauge set to 0.39 inches, which is 39 thousandths of an inch. How I did that is I took my 35 thousandths and my 4,000, and I'm adding them together because I don't have a 39 thousandth. And then basically you just slide that in between that gap, and if it fits, you're good to go. If it doesn't, you'll have to take them and file them down a little bit more. And the way you do that is you take your piston ring, and I have here a ring filer. It's basically just a little rotary tool. This one is hand turned. You can get electric ones, and you put your piston ring on there and hold it in place, and you take your handle and turn it. I think this has already been done. That's why I'm not actually doing it with this one. And then like you file it down a few turns and you put it back in there, level it out, measure it until it gets down to 39 thousandths of an inch between these two ends while it's installed on the piston and in the piston bore. So I've already got about 2 of these done, and I'm going to go ahead and knock out the rest of them. It's kind of a tedious and painstaking process. It takes a while, and I don't really want to record it, so I think I'm going to just do one and then skip the other ones. I'm going to do one for you guys and skip all the other ones. And yeah. So I'm going to move these two off to the side since they don't need to be filed down, since they're both the furthest away from all the heat and they're already within spec. So the second and first rings are going to be what are getting done. So I'm going to take the second ring here and put it down in the block. Put it in one of the cylinder bores and press it down with this piston here that I've already done up and measure it. And it already slides into that one, so I'm gonna I've already done that one apparently. This is a second ring, so I'm just gonna set it aside, and I'm gonna do another one. And take that one, slide it down into the block, and measure it up, or get it evened up. And I can see just with my eyes that it's not going to fit into this one. They're like super close together. So I'm going to take this one back out and start grinding on it. And this is the upside. It has a little dots on it to show you the upside of the piston ring. That's the side that should be facing up on the piston. So I'm going to take this and start grinding away at it. And then I take it, stick it back down into the cylinder bore, get it all leveled out, and measure again. And I have to do this like 16 more times, I think, 12 more times. I still won't quite fit, so I do it again. Pile a little bit more on. Don't get too happy with it. These are just thousands of an inch that we're talking about here. So just, you know, turn it a few turns, be patient, and make sure you don't take too much meat off of them. And nope, it still doesn't fit. So gotta take a little bit more off. Stick it back in the cylinder bore. Get it all straightened out as best as I can, and then use the piston to, you know, make sure it's even all the way around. And measure again. And so now I have it so that my 0.039 inches or 39 thousandths of an inch filler gauge will fit between the two gaps while it's installed in the cylinder head. So this one is done. And now I'm going to go ahead and do all the rest of them, but I'm not going to video that. As you can see, it takes a while, and I don't want to eat up all my memory on my phone. And yeah, I'm just going to come back to you guys when I'm ready to do the rest of the work to the block. So that's going to be that, and yeah, so I'm going to stop you guys, and then I'm going to move along and do this real quick. Alright, so it's a whole new day. Getting all these piston rings on these pistons took me a good little while yesterday, so I ran out of time. I didn't really get anything much else done. But anyways, I got all the rings on the pistons, and my next step is to get these pistons installed to the block. And in order to do that, I need to install a crankshaft. Now the crankshaft rides on these bearings that are placed inside of the block, and these billet steel things called the main caps, and they hold the crankshaft in place. I already took the bearings and installed them into the block and into the main caps because I didn't feel like that was something that you guys needed to see. All they do is push in and snap down. They are oriented in a certain way, but like there's tutorials for that all over the internet. But the next thing I need to do is get my crankshaft into this engine block and clamp down with these main caps. And so I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna move you guys around a little bit so that you guys can see better, and I'm gonna get to work. Okay, before I get my crankshaft installed into the block, the first thing I need to do is apply some assembly lube. It's this to the crankshaft bearings, the main bearings that the crankshaft ride on. I've already done it for the main cap bearings. They're off camera, so I just decided to do those, you know, where they sit at. So I'm gonna do it for the main caps in the block as well. One thing I forgot to mention when I mentioned the main caps earlier was that the number 3 main cap is called a thrust bearing. It has edges, unlike the rest of the bearings here, that allow the crankshaft to move to ride rear and forward on it. because your crankshaft will move back and forth in the engine block, even though it's a pretty solid unit. It's designed to move back and forth just a little bit, so it has some faces on it that allow that to happen without the crankshaft making contact with the block. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this lube like this. And the reason I'm applying this lube is so that, like, when you first start up one of these engines, the oil hasn't gotten into all the passages yet, and like, so that'll just be dry metal on metal, and that's a bad thing. You don't want steel on cast iron rubbing together, because things get really hot really fast and you start breaking stuff, and like everything else that goes wrong on these things, it gets really expensive really fast. For the thrust bearing here, you want to apply some of this lube on the outside edge as well, so that it has a little lubrication out there. The thrust bearing is always the third one from the front of the engine, so that's the first, second, third, that's the thrust bearing, fourth, fifth. And pointing this way is where the crank snout will be. I'll show you guys that in a second. So let me finish applying this lube and get this crankshaft in. Lube. Alright, seems like it's about enough lube. Alright, and then you just take your crankshaft, hold it by either end from the snout and the little area where you'll have your flex plate, and lower it down into there nice and smooth. Try not to ding it on the edges of the block, and sit it down in there nicely. Let me get this box out the way now. And then you take your main caps and just set them on top of it. They're numbered so that you'll know which one goes where. This is number 2, so it actually goes in the second spot. They also have an arrow that points towards the front of the engine, so like you'll know which orientation to put them in. Set that down on there. Now they're a little hard to get in because it's a tight fit, and I think that's designed into the block. But if you ever need to take them out, they're extremely hard to get out. This is the number 3. As you can see, it has a thrust bearing like the one in the block does. The others don't have that. It is facing this way in the number 3 spot. Get it down in there. And this is number 4. Number 4 will face this way with the arrow pointing forward. Another thing that I did off camera was I already installed these before, and I put a little piece of plastic gauge in there to measure the clearance of my block. But that was just something that I did off camera, and I figured nobody would really want to watch, and it took a while to get these things back out, so that was a pain in the butt. You would get, this video would have been like 3 hours long just trying to watch me to get those out. But basically all I'm doing now is showing you what I did with my first dry run, getting these in. And number 5. Okay, number 5 goes here. Nice and neat. And then you put in the bolts that hold it in place. Now these bolts, these are a special type of bolt made to hold in these main bearing caps, but they do make aftermarket ones. I'm just putting these in for now. I'm going to buy some ARP aftermarket ones. These are torque to angle. You torque them down, and then you turn them a certain amount of degrees to get them in the right spot. So I'm going to go ahead and install these. The The ones with the without the studs go to the inside. These are all don't have the stud. You'll see what I mean in a minute by stud. Alright, here's one of the ones with the stud. These go to the outsides. This goes to the inside on one of them. Outside, inside. Now, these bolts have to be torqued to a specific amount before you can, finish up the process and start getting your pistons onto the crank. The piston also has a set of bearings just like the block does that you have to put on to the piston, and the piston has its own little set of main caps and not main caps, of caps and stuff that you got going on or whatever. But I'll show you guys that later. Get these hand tightened down. Finger tight before I start getting them torqued down with the torque wrench. Alright, so I'm going to need my 1/2 inch here with an extender that goes on the inside bolts, and I'm going to need a 15, I believe, and I took this from my my impact set because I don't have that size in the regular set. So what I'm going to do is keep those right there, and I'm going to grab my torque wrench. Now this torque wrench is a kind of fancy model from the Quinn company. It does torque and angle settings, so I can do it all with this one wrench instead of having to change from a torque wrench to an angle wrench, an angle gauge wrench, whatever the heck you call it. Anyways, it's digital and it makes a beep sound when you're getting close to your set amount of torque. These bolts need to be set to 15 foot-pounds of torque, and it should already be at that set on my wrench here. Give it a second, it's got to start up. Let me set it down even, put it back in its case and let it do the startup mode that it does. Because it doesn't like being moved around when you first start it up. Give that a second to start up, and I'll continue like tightening these guys down. While they're starting up, in addition to having to be torqued at a specific torqued to a specific set of foot-pounds, they also need to be torqued in a specific pattern. Basically from the inside to the outside. So it'll look reversed to you guys, but it should be torqued from the middle. Number 3, the number 3 cap should be the inside, should be the first one. The bottom one should be the second one. This is the third. This is the fourth, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. And then you go and do the same thing for the outside bolts. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. In that order. Let's see if my wrench is ready yet. It is set to 80 degrees. Let's get it. Alright. So first, I'm going to torque them down to 15 foot-pounds. And this is the first one. Set that to, and it goes until it beeps. Turn. It'll start beeping. And you'll get several, several beeps before it get there until you get a solid beep, and that's when it's done. It was already set to 15 foot-pounds because I did this yesterday. See, that's 15 for number 1. Let's go number 2. That's number 2. Let's see, this one, number 3. Number 4. Whoops. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Whoops, number 7 is on the outside. Number 8. Number 9. And number 10. And then you go through and do the same thing for the outside bolts. God dang it. And then you'll go back through and add an additional 80 degrees of angle to each one of these bolts. So I'll take my torque wrench and I'll set it to the angle setting. And it's already preset to 80 degrees because I did this yesterday and it's got it in the memory. This was an expensive wrench, that's why it does all that. I mean, I hated to pay for it when I first got it, but I have it now and I like it. So starting from the first one in the inside and give it 80 degrees of turn, which is a lot more than 15 foot-pounds of torque. And set it back. No. 80 foot-pounds. Give it a turn. Oh geez, I reached 82 foot-pounds that time. Okay, so my phone's memory ran out right at the end of me finishing up these bolts here. So I moved you guys over to my GoPro and finished you guys out on a time lapse. These specific blocks, I think all of the LS blocks are what are called a 6-bolt main cap block. What that means is that you have 4 bolts here on the top and you have 2 on the sides, 1 on each side. And next thing that I'm gonna do after I've done all the top main bolts, I'm gonna do the sides, of course. So I've already got them started in by hand, and I'm gonna use this 10 millimeter impact socket here because that's what I got to first. It's not gonna matter if it's an impact or a regular, and these only need to be torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. So I've already got my wrench here preset to 18 foot-pounds, and I'm gonna turn it until it beeps. And there you have 18 foot-pounds on that side. These don't need to go in any specific order other than like just do one cap at a time. Don't like go down the line and then come back on the other side. Let's see if I can get this one twisted in a little bit more. Is it going? Let me see if I can find a little bit deeper socket to use for this one, because it's got a little bit of something going on there. And that's it. All 10 of the side bolts, on 5 on each side, torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. All 20 of the main cap top bolts torqued down to 15 foot-pounds, and then 80 degrees of angle. And my crankshaft is in. It should turn, no problem. It turns. It doesn't have any like really hard spots where it doesn't have. It is like super smooth. It doesn't have any hard spots where it like stops and it gets hard to turn. And so it's pretty much ready to accept the pistons via the piston rods there. And I'm gonna get set up for that, and I'll get back with you guys in just a minute. Okay, the next step now that I have my crankshaft in is to get the pistons installed into the block and onto the crankshaft. As you can see, I flipped the block over. The crankshaft is at the bottom now. And what I need to do is get these pistons pushed down into each one of these cylinder bores here and lined up with the crankshaft so that this rod can go onto the crankshaft. Now these pistons are each matched to their own little cap. They have a number on the side. This is 4022, and it has it etched on this one as well as 4022. I know you can't see it through the camera. It's super small. But anyways, just like the main caps and the block, these have their own little, this piston and the rod have their own little bearing that goes down inside of them. And they look something like this. It's made of a somewhat softer metal, so that like it's not steel on steel or steel on aluminum in this case. And like just like the bearings in here, you just set them down in there and push them down, and they snap in like that. And get them even as you can. And there's one for the cap side, and then you get one for the rod side as well. And just push it down in there, and it just kind of snaps into place. And that's pretty much it for the caps. Now, as for the pistons going into these holes here, these cylinder bores, it's a little bit hard to get them in there. The crank needs to be at bottom dead center. That means like I mean, it's hard to explain, but the part that the connecting rod connects to needs to be all the way straight up and down at the bottom of the block. And in order to get these pistons down in there, as you can see, they won't really fit if you just try to put them in, because you have all these little rings here blocking stuff, and it's hard to compress those. So what you have to do is you have to take this item right here. It's called a piston ring compressor, and you stick your piston in there, and it compresses the rings for you while you slide your piston into the block there. Let's see if I can get one done real quick here before I put you guys on time lapse and do the rest of them. So my piston all inside this thing here and tighten it down. It's a little bit of a process. It's got a ratcheting type mechanism. Get it even in there. And then you'll put it down into the block. Now, these pistons need to be facing a certain direction, depending on your crank. They have a side on them that is flat. This side is flat, and this side has a little fillet in it that you have to put up against the crankshaft. So you don't want to get those swapped around. I'm gonna put some lubrication, some assembly lube on these bearings, and see if I can send one down through there and get it all matched up for you guys before I put you on time lapse and do all the rest of them. So assembly lube, this is important. Gotta turn this back on. Always want to lube up your rod and crank side. Keep that moving around. Now I'm gonna double check that because this is an aftermarket rod, and I don't want to put it in wrong. So just to be sure, I'm gonna make sure it's going the right way. All right, so looks like the flat side actually goes towards the front of the engine. So let's get this one in there. Try not to ding up my cylinder walls. And push it down. Get it lined up there. And let's see, where's my little tool? I don't know what I did with it that quick. But anyways, get this all ratcheted down. Make sure it's good to go. And then you can take your hammer, the handle of your hammer, and get it sent down through here. And what you don't want to do is have that piston rod hit the crankshaft, because it can scar up the crankshaft pretty good, and that would be bad. So send it through there, and I can't get it in. Oh, there it goes. And I got one in. So now what I'm gonna do is reach underneath here and line it up with the crankshaft so that it'll sit on there properly. It's easier to see from this side. And I got it on the crankshaft, and that one's in. So I'm gonna bring you guys around and let you see how that fits down in there. That piston's in. I'm gonna check my fitment and verify everything before I do the rest of them, but I'm gonna put you guys on time lapse before I do that, and I'll get back with you guys and you guys can watch me work. And so that's it. I have all 8 pistons in on the correct side, turned the right way. It takes a while to do. Sometimes the piston doesn't go in right the first time. You have to take it back out and redo it. I'll give it a turn here, but I don't have the tool to actually, turn it. I don't think I have the strength to actually do it myself with the extra drag caused by the pistons. But they're all in there. They have their caps on, their lube, they have their bolts in the caps. I'm gonna go ahead and get them tightened down. This place is about to close that I'm working at. My storage unit place is about to close in a few minutes. In about 30 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and get these bolts or the pistons tightened down. What I like to do next is put my heads on, but unfortunately I don't have the head gaskets or the head bolts that I want, and they're both pretty expensive, so I'm gonna have to wait another paycheck before I get those. I do have the crank pulley, the oil pump, the timing set, and all of that, but I don't think I'm gonna have enough time to put it on today. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these torqued down. This video has become long enough even with the time lapse, so I'm gonna end it here and just say thank you for watching. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button to help me out, and I'll see you later.